Kathy.
I'm
Mel-
sorry, David, you were interrupted. Can you start again?
Yeah, so I have the roll order. Deb. Gail, Baruch, Greg, Jamie, Kirk, Kathy, Millie, David, Deb, and Mark.
Hey, Mark.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Hi, Mark.
Hello.
Mark.
Hi.
So I can only stay on for about an hour. This was not my selected date, but I can stay on for an hour.
I actually have to leave at 2:30 myself.
Okay, and this is Gail. I just wanted to let you know I have a new computer and apparently webinar didn't open on it. So I'm going to go do that right now. I'm going to stay on my phone. I'm going to go to my computer. So I'm going to show up twice. Okay, but I'm going to then get rid of the phone one.
So I'll call the continuing ed meeting to order at 12:33. Anyone want to add up to the agenda?
Yes, I was going to discuss the course that we had, the successful air and vapor collection.
Yes.
Just wanted to talk about that a little bit. If I'm not sure if anybody else has taken it or not.
Yeah, I'm going to add that under old business related to courses that we've approved for regulatory credit. I don't want to have a long discussion, but I think we should talk about it since it's fresh in our head. And then
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, David.
the other thing I was going to add to it was just at the end of reviewing the course approval request, what CEU forms are still due to folks and what we can do about the 3 that the LSPA are looking for that have errors in them still. So I'd like to add those 2 things to the agenda.
David, also, I don't know if this is old business, just an update on the draft minutes, where we're at with those.
Well, nobody responded to my email from the Division of Open Government about what to do.
I think added to the.
Are you talking about the old minutes, Deb?
For both, but you did send us the email from the Assistant AG. Is there something more than that?
Okay, I don't know where we are. All right. So under old business, David, what was the name of the course?
It was the vapor intrusion course offering last week that we discussed and approved at the last meeting.
It's called,
got it.
It's called the Successful Air and Vapor Data Collection. And regarding the meeting minutes, I think we should bring it up, put it into the main agenda for the main body of the meeting. That way it's, I think it's appropriate place there.
What if some people aren't going to be there for that part?
Right.
So I just wanted to, we can talk about it now if you want. I was just trying to see if I had missed something because I was out at the last August meeting. But I guess the question becomes, we have the pre-COVID meeting minutes and then the post-COVID meeting minutes. And they're still outstanding. So the question becomes, I do believe that based on the email from the Assistant AG, if I read it correctly or interpreted it correctly, it seems to me that it has to do with we potentially can use this recording as a proof that a meeting took place and basically memorializes our discussions, and that appears, based on my understanding, appears to suffice and meet the requirement of ensuring that we have open meeting laws, and also the meeting records are the meeting minutes are recorded. But then I guess I'm looking for confirmation on that. And secondly, then the question pre-COVID.
I think it does say at the bottom of that paragraph that written minutes are still required, even if you have the recording.
Yeah, it
But
says
you know,
something-
when
it
we
says
get to
something-
that, we'll talk about it.
Yeah, it says something like a recording of the meeting does not satisfy the open meeting laws requirement. So the public meeting is required that a public body maintain a written minutes of a meeting.
Okay, so it's an outstanding issue with regards to legal interpretation and procedural.
I think it's fairly clear though from this
Yeah,
writing.
we're getting ahead of ourselves. David, could you just start, continue with the meeting?
Well,
We're not talking about the minutes right now.
okay, because it applies to all of our meetings. And you're going to
Correct.
talk about it in the board meeting.
Right. I think it
Okay.
was more in the interest of some members need to leave. So perhaps we can add it in this particular agenda for the Education Committee meeting, and discussions would then carry for the other committee meetings, the board meeting itself, where we have that same obligation. So sounds like everybody would like to at least incorporate it into this agenda, and that's for David to agree.
Well, we're discussing the minutes now, so why don't we just continue it? How are we going to get written minutes done for the meetings?
Yeah, first thing is that it is required that we have a meeting, a written minutes, and it is very clearly stated in this letter. So the next thing is that how do we make it right? So first we have to establish, is it required? There was a discussion that it may not be required, but it is required. That's what it says in here. So once we cross that threshold, now let's talk about how we can get those written minutes in place.
So why don't we hear from Beverly, because I think we had a slightly different interpretation presented last time. Well, maybe a very different.
It was my interpretation, and I'm not prepared really to talk about this today at this meeting. It was my interpretation that you could post the recording of the meeting, and that would suffice for the minutes. So, Farouk, can you direct my attention to the part of the AG office email that says that there must be recorded minutes? I'm sorry, that there must be posted minutes?
It's the first paragraph, the last sentence.
Yep, I'm with you. So the first paragraph of the last sentence?
Yes, the last sentence of the first paragraph. The letter dated 7/22, right?
Yes. Can you read it out loud for everybody, Farouk, please?
It says, the last sentence says, a recording of the meeting does not satisfy the open meeting laws requirement that a public body maintain written minutes of a meeting.
Okay.
So my only suggestion would be, I mean, it says what it says clearly then, but then the question becomes, there's approximately 5 or 6 other boards that have been established under the EEA umbrella. And the question is whether, and those are recorded meetings. And so it would be good, and I'm more than happy to research this, at least just from a layman's term, just go onto the webpage and see what the other boards, water boards, et cetera, are doing to ensure that, there are, we are part of the EEA umbrella, and seeing what other boards.
Yeah, Millie, but I think it's a legal issue. So I think
I have a suggestion, Beverly, if you may, can I make a suggestion?
But it doesn't matter what, it matters what the Attorney General's office has said. And so I'm not prepared to discuss it right now. So I'll have to take a look at it. But, Millie, of course, you can talk to whoever and EEA you choose to, but there are legal ramifications that factor into it. Because we apparently.
Can I make a suggestion?
Well,
just a quick one. In this letter, the previous sentence also actually makes it says that it does not need to be an elaborate minute. It can just include a summary of discussions, maybe very brief, and essentially the decisions that we make. So in each meeting, we make 4, 5, 6 decisions, right? And
Yep.
if you just document those, I think that would fulfill the obligation that we have. So it doesn't need to be 3 or 4 pages long. So that's.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish.
No, that's all right.
Yeah. So what the open meeting law requires is that someone who is not present understand what happened at the meeting. So.
Well, it says the body is not required to transcribe the recording. So it's not necessary that we need to be full, complete detail. So we can take a little bit of a latitude on that, I guess. Just for the sake of keeping things simple and not being too burdensome.
Yeah.
But in terms of backtracking, we have the recording, so the minutes that we need meetings for can be put together from the recording at a minimum, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and I guess if Beverly, if what really matters is the Attorney General's office opinion rather than mirroring what this board does against what other EEA boards do, then it sounds to me like we have what we need there as per this 7/22/20 AG letter.
Yep.
And there are the 2 pre-COVID meetings.
Right.
January and February that we need minutes for also, which should be an easier task. Still, I understand it's time consuming.
Right.
I think it would be time consuming to go through the meetings and transcribe it all. He's on a cell phone.
I'm trying to shut it off.
You gotta mute it.
Yeah,
But I agree with Farouk that it could be very streamlined. Continuing ed committee discuss courses X, Y, Z, and they were approved.
Mm-hmm.
And if someone wants the details, they can go to the recordings. So this is tabled until another meeting, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. I agree with that path forward, and I'm glad that we're discussing the meeting minutes. Thank you.
So going forward,
I'm sorry.
So I've got it. I just pulled up the email, so I'm reading it, and that is the opinion. So I'll see what we can do.
so how about a plan going forward
and to respond to your question, Deb, yes, absolutely. Those meetings are an easier fix for January and February. And I think there are LSP board minutes that aren't posted for January. Anyway, some are posted and some are not. So yes, those are the most expedient and easiest to do. So I'll make sure that those get done.
Thank you, Beverly.
This is Greg.
Yep.
Could I make a suggestion maybe going forward that we have maybe some of the board members take notes going forward, and that way we can not fall further behind, and that way it's not all on Beverly's list of things to do.
I'm more than happy to assist to that endeavor.
Yeah, I'll be happy to do that also. It's, you know, we don't, even if the chairs of the various committees, subcommittees, just jotted down the decisions that were made, and, you know, we could consolidate them and make some minutes that I think will satisfy, at least in the short term, you know, again, without putting more effort onto Beverly.
Good idea. I think that's good.
Sure.
Great.
Okay.
Okay. Wonderful. So thank you, Greg. That's a great suggestion.
So moving on, just under old business, I don't want to have a long discussion about this, but we had the discussion the last meeting about the VI course that we approved for 2 regulatory credits and 2 technical credits. And I just want to point out some other courses that were similar for people to look at and consider for when we maybe have another discussion about this in the future, or if this comes up again. I had talked about course, I didn't have a lot of time to prepare for that meeting. I had materials like the day before or something, but I had referenced course 1608 from 2017, which was a PFAS course that Paul Locke was at, and that had 2 technical and 2 regulatory credits. I failed to think about and compare to the LNAPL course that Wes mentioned during the meeting that was held last fall and then in February of this year, and that's course 1676, and that was approved for 4 regulatory credits. It was reviewed at a meeting in May 2019. I don't have the request, but I do have a copy of the agenda. So there's 2 that people can look up and have for any kind of future discussion. And once again, I don't want to have a long discussion here, but since it's fresh in my head, I would like to say I did attend the BI course. And if other people want to comment on it quickly, we can, and then move on. I feel that the 2 hours regulatory was generous. When I compare it to the LNAPL course, the LNAPL course had DEP talking for 40 minutes. There was a presentation on AULs and permanent solutions and how the practice was doing them. There was a presentation on lines of evidence and the simplified approach straight out of the DEP guidance. And there was an overview of previous LNAPL regs. The VI course had 30 minutes of DEP, and the rest of it was investigation and mitigation, analytical and sampling methods, some case studies, and a vendor. You're talking about deeper probes and subsurface sampling and leak detection. So I just wanted to provide that input while it was fresh in my head. And if anyone else wants to quickly speak on it, they can, and then we'll move on.
David, I was also at the course. This is Greg, and I agree with you completely. I was a little bit surprised that there wasn't more involvement from DEP. Again, you know, we've had this conversation before. It's not we need to be thinking about how we deal with it, and I think DEP needs to think about how it deals with this requirement. But I agree with you.
And we can't pick on webinars, but you know, the in-person LNAPL one, Ken was there interacting throughout the whole time, and that's more difficult probably in a webinar setting. So
yeah, I agree with you about the LNAPL also. Ken participated throughout the day.
Yeah. It felt very different. That's the reason I brought it up, Dave. You know, and you summarized it very, very well. You know, so we just have to be a little bit careful next time we do look at it. You know, yeah, that was my thought as well.
And if I could offer too.
In retrospect, do you feel like it would have been 1 DEP and 3 technical? Would that have been more appropriate?
Half and 3.5 maybe.
Okay, I'm just wondering if it was 1 and 3 or all technical, or you know.
I don't want to answer that.
Okay, but you're just saying 2 was generous. I'll accept that.
That was good.
Okay, can I just stop you right there and get a list of who's on the line? So Gail, Farouk, Greg, Jamie, Kathy, Mark, Millie. Did I miss anyone?
Kirk?
Deb,
Kirk and Deb.
So relative, did anyone else want to comment before we move on?
Yeah, I was just going to briefly say, David, that in cases, can people hear me?
Yes, Mark.
In cases where DEP has some pretty detailed guidance documents, which pertains to the VI and LNAPL, when you have DEP talking about topics that really relate to those guidance documents and can get quite technical, I think you walk this fine line with what you kind of consider regulatory and what's considered technical. And that's why VI and even LNAPL kind of fall into this special category where there's so much DEP guidance that is very technical. LSPs get really excited about making sure they're doing things technically that are following guidance and also known as regulation. So I think it's a challenging topic to draw a really bright line of what's regulatory, what's technical. So just want to put that out there.
Lori McCarthy just sent in, there was also some Q&A at the end that DEP participated in.
Yeah.
Correct.
I'd
Yep.
actually like to support what Mark said, because I think that's how we're going to have to look at it. If there's specific technical aspects that the speakers are covering, that is the guidance talks about that specific issue, I think it is reasonable to consider it regulatory. As long as we might have to look more closely at what the content is, but my feeling is that that's a reasonable approach to say that is part of the regulatory concept, that the guidance is technical, the people are presenting on those technical aspects, then I think I'm okay more with that idea.
The LNAPL course, that wasn't 100% presented by DEP either, was it?
No.
So that's, yeah, it would be helpful if we spend just 1 minute so I can, just basically just focus on, take this comment in a very constructive and helpful manner and have better guidance for foreseeable future DEP courses. So what we're saying is that the 30 minutes, the content was okay, but it was too short, or was the expectation that we needed to maybe just develop the discussion further to provide for more opportunity contact time between the regulator and the LSP community?
We had a long discussion when we approved the course at the last meeting, and it was debated between 0, 2, and 4 DEP credits for the course. And so I'm just providing some input now that the course has passed and how it relates to some other courses that have been approved for future consideration when we look at a course.
Okay, so help me. The difference being that, for example, the prior courses that you mentioned, whether it was the PFAS or the LNAPL, did they have more substance and content or contact time versus the VI?
I think it was really the contact time, Millie. Gerard summarized the guidance document and some regulatory references and material he's been through before in other forms. So it was really just that beginning. He was the introductory presentation, and they meant to set the stage for the technical material that followed. But it was pretty, it was pretty basic. And again, it's not a knock on Gerard so much as it just he did what he did. And what wasn't there that might have been helpful is some of the regulatory interpretations that DEP has made in different regions, and we know what we generally know what the guidance says. We don't always know what DEP, how a DEP interprets it.
Mm-hmm. Fair.
And some of that may have been helpful and would have added more regulatory content.
Thank you.
So we have lots of good information for the next time one comes in, or if we have this discussion again prior to another request. So I was going to move on to the course approval requests. There's 4 of them. The first one is an LSPA, beating the odds, 1.5 technical hours, live webinar format, and on-demand course format. I make a motion to approve it for the 1.5 hours with the course number having a capital W after it for the live webinar and a capital O after it for the on-demand course.
Second.
Okay,
Second.
well, we haven't talked about the O and the W business, so I think that's a separate issue. So,
That's my motion.
I think
That's my motion. So
I think, you know, approving the course is fine, but we need to talk about that O and W business because that changes everything. So you're saying you're approving the course, or you're taking a roll call vote on that, but let's talk about the O and W because that's on Wendy's agenda. Wendy, the item that Wendy wanted on the agenda.
okay, well, I guess to make this more efficient, I'll
Just say
do
we
a
approve it.
motion to-
Why don't you just make the motion to approve it and we'll decide later? Make the motion to approve it or not, and then we'll decide how the course
I've
number
got a
goes
question
later after we
here.
decide the other issue.
Sure,
David,
if that's what people want.
Yes, let's do that.
It's just easier.
David, I've got a question. You know, it's a brilliant, suggestion that Wendy made. You know, that it actually in the name we can tell if it's a webinar or an online or it's in person. Now, the reason we started using A, B, and C is because it's the same course provided at a different time or change in the presenter or something, but it's the same course. So I'm just going for clarification here. If let's say the course number is 1, 2, 3, 4. If 1, 2, 3, 4 A, B, or C means it's in-person presentation of a course that has got some changes in personnel or something. And if 1, 2, 3, 4 O, that means it's an online course. 1, 2, 3, 4 W is a webinar. Now, if sometime the webinar's presenter changes, then we will have 1, 2, 3, 4 OA, right? Something like
Right.
that.
So we're not
Well,
discussing. We're not discussing
Oh,
it.
the motion. Yeah, I think maybe we should talk about that. Maybe it's the right, continuing ed is the right place to talk about that issue. And maybe we could decide that we better decide that at some point, or just move on, approve the courses and decide how they're designated later.
I think we need to approve the courses. Wendy has submitted a memo that she wants us to discuss that raises the issue of the O and the W and the A and all of that. And I think that's a separate agenda item.
It
So
is,
we'll
and
go-
I think
If
we'll put.
the board, and it requires a majority vote. If the board decides that it's going to go with the O or a W, then I'll add that to the format, the course approval form.
Okay.
Right.
So
But that's a separate discussion.
Okay, so I think there's a memo that is warranting action, discussion and action.
So we'll go through the course approvals and then we can have the discussion. And I think we can have the discussion and decide today.
Yes.
Now, it's not that complicated and it's a timely manner. It's something that has to be done. So
I agree.
I make a motion to approve the course for 1.5 credits.
Second.
Okay, any comments from the board or the public? Roll call.
My comment, David, I've got a comment actually. The comment being that hopefully, we don't have to go back and change the numbers that we have already assigned.
I don't know how long that presentation on the gambling is supposed to be.
So Farouk,
Gail, you're kind of breaking up, but I think let's save that discussion as we just.
yes, stop coming back to it. Let's get the courses looked at.
Okay.
So I'm doing a roll call. A yes is approval. Gail. She's offline. Farouk.
Yes.
Greg.
Yes.
Jamie.
Yes.
Kirk.
Yes.
Kathy.
Yes.
Millie.
Yes.
David is yes. Deb.
Yes.
Mark.
Yes.
Okay, the course is approved. The next course, another LSPA offering, groundwater modeling, 4 hours, 2 formats, live webinar and on-demand course. I make a
Motion
motion.
to approve.
I second it. Any comments from the board or public? So roll call, yes, is approving. Gail? Farouk?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Jamie?
Yes.
Kirk?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Millie?
Yes.
David is yes. Deb?
Yes.
And Mark?
Yes.
That's approved. The third course is a Mass DEP offering current and emerging MCP topics for LSPs, 1 regulatory hour.
Motion approved.
Second. Second.
Gail, can you?
Sorry, I had to, oh, yes, yes, yes.
She's approving
Hold
all.
on.
Is there a motion?
Hold on. I can't make it stop. Oh,
Okay, I'm not doing these meeting minutes. Hey,
They might be
make a
easy,
motion
actually.
to approve.
apologize to everyone. I actually lost my connection on the computer, so I went to the phone.
Gail, do you approve?
Yes. Sorry.
So I need a second on this third course, please.
Second.
Okay, any comments from the board or public?
I only have a quick question or comment. So we are talking about a number of topics that are very contemporary right now with COVID and the operational adjustments to ensure that we meet program requirements and we service the community with PFAS and the package from BWR, for example, the drinking water regs soon to be unveiled very soon, and the tie back to 21E, and also climate change, which actually has certain performance standards in MCP that deal with climate change. It seems like there's a lot of content here, and my question is, it's asking for 1 regulatory credit. If that's what the program is looking for, I'm definitely it's a full yes for me, but I think there's a lot more here than just the 1. Just putting that out there.
Yeah,
Right
they,
now, it's an LSPA meeting, so they don't have a long time. It's just
It's a 1-hour meeting.
Okay.
yeah, it's a membership meeting.
Mhm.
So any other comments? So I'll go through the roll call. A yes is approving. Gail?
Yes.
Farouk?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Jamie?
Yes.
Kirk?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Millie?
Yes.
David is yes. Deb?
Yes.
And Mark?
Yes.
So that's approved. And the last one, another LSPA offering, cost-effective remediation through enhanced site characterization, 2 technical hours, 2 formats, live webinar, and on-demand course. I make a motion to approve it.
Second.
Any comments from the board or public? I'll go through the roll call. A yes is approving. Gail? Farouk?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Jamie?
Yes.
Kirk?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Millie?
Yes.
David is yes. And Deb
Yes.
and Mark.
Yes.
So that's all the course approval requests. There's an announcement. LSPA CSM approach is now being offered as a live webinar, October 8th. Is that what? Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a comment on that actually. For some reason, that is not available yet because something to do with them receiving CEU forms from the board.
Correct.
Yeah, Wendy Rundle just asked, will it be possible to have the CEU form for this September 24th meeting by the end of day tomorrow, so we can distribute it after the meeting? Over 200 people registered. Many logistical issues with waiting for it, especially people who have October 1st renewals.
Okay, so I'll respond to that. Which course are we talking about?
1703.
1703. Yes, I'll get that to Wendy as soon as possible.
I actually think that's not correct, David. I think she's looking for the approval of the current and emerging MCP practice
Right.
topics piece, which
okay,
is.
so all right. So what is she
That's
looking?
before.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on, Chris. What is Wendy? Which course does Wendy say she's looking for?
The
It's
course
one
is tomorrow's
credit
member meeting.
Regulatory credit course.
The one for tomorrow's member meeting.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah,
and which one is that?
It just got approved, and people are going to need it for their next renewal, so I can see why they want it sooner than later.
Yeah, well, maybe they should have planned better, but let me just say that
Let's not.
it's not October 1 for the renewals. Renewals for October, and I'll address this during the board meeting, are due October 30th, 2020, not October 1. But I'll please, Wendy, I'll make sure that I get that to you hopefully today.
So
Great.
can I need to know this. So is there expiration date in EDEP October 1st or October 30th? Because
No,
right now,
there are some that were October 1st because of the governor's, COVID-related announcement, which got
pushed over. Yeah.
pushed over.
okay.
But there some are also in there because anybody whose approval was April 30th, I think they're still in October 1st. So we do have to.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure of that because that's how I did it in EDEP. So yeah, there are some people that are coming up October 1st for renewal.
Right. Okay. Well, I'll get that certificate out.
Thank you. So before we talk about course numberings and noting them relative to online versus webinar, another LSPA matter is they have 3 course CEU forms that they wrote about that are incorrect, and they want to know if they can be fixed and resubmitted quickly. And they also are looking so the email references what's wrong with the 3 and what needs to be fixed.
Okay. Well, that's just Wendy being Wendy. All she had to do was email that stuff to me. I'm going to get it. I'll get the corrections to you, Wendy, on those 3 courses. I'll do that today.
Sure.
I'm sorry, 4 courses. And Wendy knows that, I have to say that emailing the whole board about mistakes on a continuing education attendance certification form doesn't really help.
She didn't do that.
She did do that. She did do that. And that's not been the past procedure, but
I didn't get an email.
No, she did not do.
It came from you.
Those things notwithstanding, 1692A, 1699, 1657A, And the new course today, it will be 1,700, maybe 5, but I'll get those certificates and out to Wendy today. Hopefully the meeting will end soon.
Just to correct the record, I wanted to bring this up as well. The email that I think most of the board did get was from EBC looking for the
Right.
forms.
Correct.
Has that been sent out, Beverly?
No, that's not correct. So yes, Jamie, to answer your question, EBC got their forms.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Question from Samuel Butcher. Has any progress been made on the request for course approval for Midwest Geoscience class hydrology of glacial deposits? It was raised last meeting
Yes.
and I'm not aware of any movement on this approval. Thank you.
Yep. I have been emailing Mr. Butcher. We communicated yesterday. I'll email Mr. Butcher after the meeting today.
Wendy says those were originally extended for, oh, that was the October 1st comment. She also said they should have planned better is unacceptable comment. Wendy being Wendy is unacceptable comment. The reason the LSP emails were BEC, we have waited for several months for some of the several months
attendance certification forms. Wendy, I'm sorry if you feel that that was unacceptable. I apologize to you. I have to say that I was on leave during the month of August, and I didn't return until after Labor Day. So, and Wendy's well aware of that, and I may be out even more time coming up. So I'm just going to share that with you. But the reason for the delay was that I was on leave for 3 weeks. And again, I may be out even more time coming this fall. So we'll just have to see how my medical issues resolve themselves. Wendy, if I offended you or you took my comments in a negative way, I apologize to you.
Just to be, set the record straight, Wendy's email went to Beverly, and Beverly, you forwarded that to us. I think
Yes.
that's how it.
Right.
Correct.
As she requested, yes.
Yep, and the last issue on that is that they are still looking for 3 other CEU course forms. So
Daniel Kelleher asked, who is the point of contact for communicating with the board? I've been trying to have a communication this summer. I have applied for 3 course approvals on April 10th with a reply on July 15th. I cannot seem to get our request back on the agenda, Midwest Geoscience Group.
If Dan is on the line, Dan, I will email you this week about that. Midwest Geo. I'll email you this week. See, the problem is if I'm out, nobody's there to do these things.
So the last topic is notations for courses and what we add or don't add to a number relative to the format. There was a proposal from the LSPA, which I'm comfortable with. Farouk mentioned another one. I think it's pretty easy to resolve right now.
Yeah, I have one comment too on that. Basically, what I would like to do instead of an O, I'd like to propose a D for demand, simply
Okay.
to avoid the confusion of O's and zeros.
Yeah, well, this is going to create a logistical nightmare to try and sort out all these courses. First of all, the past courses, so we're starting fresh. So I'm not going to be able to go back into all of the attendance certification forms and change them so that
Correct.
they comport with this new practice. That's number one. Number two, a live webinar and an on-demand webinar, you're going to offer a distinction between those, and what if you change the instructor or the curriculum for the course? Then it will become 1234-0A1. What would be the designation? Why can't we just stick with a B and a C or something like that?
This is Debbie.
If these courses change instructors, as they're likely to do, or they change the curriculum, they're going to have a new designation. So would the new designation based on past practice be 1234-0A?
Yes. And we're not asking to go back to other courses.
Right.
This is from this point on.
I
Okay,
can't do that.
I don't have a problem with W, and I don't have a problem with D. And if there's a change, I don't see a problem with adding an A to it. Or one.
This is Debbie. I guess I don't see why those designations are necessary. I mean, the important thing is the numerical designation. So when we get a course, it gets the numerical designation. If it comes back with a substantive change as designated in the regulations, change in instructor, change in content, change in format, we give it a alpha designation. So I don't think it's necessary to know if it's a webinar live on demand. The important thing is the numerical number and whether or not it's come back to the board for reapproval for a substantive change.
I think the issue, this is Millie, I think the issue that I believe the LSPA is trying to resolve, and I'd like to kind of get people's comments on this, is once the CEU is issued, whether it's titled correctly. And we've seen letters basically requesting that it be edited or correct the record. So this is just maybe another tool to try to get in front of it before, it goes out in a certain way, memorialized as whether it's a live webinar or an on-demand webinar.
What difference does it make?
I'm sorry?
I'm not sure what difference it makes, because the format it comes to for initial approval is the original course, whether it's live, webinar, on demand. Okay, that's how we approve the course. It gets the four number designation. If it comes back for reapproval with a substantive change, we give it an A, B, or C. So I don't see how changing formats changes the way we've been approving and reapproving courses.
No, I think the issue
makes it so much more complicated.
Right. Okay. So I think the issue is that from the get-go, the course comes to us for deliberation and vote with an embedded additional parameter to designate whether it's a live webinar or an on-demand webinar. If that is not important, then I think it's really sort of going back to the LSPA's memo and identifying, what exactly is the problem that needs to be resolved and evaluating the merits for the request.
So Debbie's talking.
I mean, there is an issue. I'm looking at Wendy's memo of September 16th at 5:06, and she has asked that she's asked about course 1657A. It's problematic because it's online and it's a webinar. I don't know how you resolve this. I just don't know how you resolve this. Because
but again,
if the course changes, the webinar, online, whichever the format is, if it changes, then it's going to need another letter added to the designation.
Right, because it's a substantive change of what was approved, and it has to be
Right.
resubmitted.
So
I
it'll
think,
be,
It's no different from any other changes.
So then there'll be some courses, as Deb is saying, with 2-letter designations instead of 1.
No,
we
I
have
think
done
what
in the
she's saying
past.
is we don't need the designation of a W or an O or a D or whatever, because we haven't been doing it so far, which gets to the point of we have old ones that aren't done that way. And what difference does it make? Because if there is a change, whether no matter what format, it's just going to come back with an A after it anyway.
Yeah,
Right.
I think the reason why LSP Association wanted to make this suggestion, and I know, like I said, I thought it was a good idea because it is the convenience of looking at a course number and say, oh, this is an online course, or this is a on-demand course, or an in-person. It really doesn't matter, that convenience. Do we really? Is it that important to
Here's the thing.
to change the way all the courses are numbered now and in the past, so that in the future it's all going to be difficult?
I
Yeah,
think
this was just to optimize. This was just to optimize.
Just convenience, that somebody looks at it and says it's an O. But do we really need to have that? And going to Debbie's point, I think she makes a very good point that we could stay with our program the way it is. That way it's going to be less confusing.
Right. And the only time it would matter is if we had something in the regulations that in the future, when this is all over, that we say no more than half of your credits can be taken as webinars, for instance. That's the only time it will start to matter. And until then, right now, during this period, we don't care how they take their courses because these are the only ones available.
So how do we resolve the course numbers that we just approved?
We just leave them as the course numbers the way they would normally get. I mean, I think it's okay to just give a course a number, and does it matter? Here's the question. Does it matter? Is there something fundamental about the on-demand course from the webinar course that does truly matter to us in terms of giving somebody credit? And that's all we really have to be concerned with.
We just approved courses with numbers and with O's and A's as such.
No, we didn't.
No, we didn't.
We didn't? Okay.
No.
David.
Just numbers, 4 numbers.
Okay.
One comment is, would it help DEP staff when they're reviewing applications that come in and list of courses taken and the LSPs 1, 2, 3 years down the road to know if it was on demand or a webinar or in person?
No.
No, because as Gail and Deb are saying, it doesn't matter. What matters is whether or not they've taken the same course within their 3-year renewal period, which is prohibited. It doesn't matter whether it's online or whether it's a webinar. I understand that it matters very much to the LSPA or the course providers, but for our record-keeping purposes, it doesn't matter. It's the numbers and the course, the number of hours and the course number itself.
Wendy had a question. So when the LSPA applies for a course as a live webinar and as an on-demand at the same time, like we did today, we will expect to get 2 CEU forms, one for the webinar and one for on-demand, correct?
Well, that's, I think, the issue that was.
Well, I think what we're saying is, why do you don't need it? If you just want me to put, one or the other, I don't, it doesn't matter when the LSPs actually turn in their certificate.
Right. To us, it doesn't matter because we're going to give credit for both courses.
That's right. And also, now you're doubling what I have to do. So instead of me you're complaining, first of all, because I was out of the office for 3 weeks, and so the certs were delayed. I get that part. But now you're saying not only if I'm out, or if I'm in, you want 2 separate certificates for 1 course. There's got to be a better solution, because now you're doubling what I have to do.
Well, yeah, they just want a clarification on what you guys are going to do. I don't think it's a demand for you to do something. It's two
No,
different things.
I get that. I get that, because it's not a demand. Absolutely, it's not. So I'm talking to the board members and asking them to decide. I'm just saying, I'm not going to be able to do 2 certificates if you're complaining that I can't get 1 done, and then you set me up to fail by asking for 2. It's not going to happen.
So,
So can I just weigh in on this one here? I guess my point, and I just really for background purposes, when a CEU form is issued back to the LSPs, and maybe the LSP on this board can help me here, does it explicitly indicate whether the format, in which format the CEU form applied?
Yes.
Yes,
so
it does, Millie. Yes, it does, Millie.
I'm looking
Okay,
at
It says
so
whether or not, it says
So-
whether or not it's regulatory. It says whether or not it's technical. It says the
Yeah, we
course
don't know it.
number.
Okay,
I'm sorry,
so
what?
I guess my point,
I-
thank you. So to conclude, what I was trying to say here is, we just need to be super precise to ensure that what's going back to the LSP has the right designation. And I think, I mean, at the end, it really, I'm not in favor of one way or another. If this is an optimization tool that helps be extra precise when a CEU form goes out, that in fact it is a W, or it is an I, or it is an O. If that's going to help, then it could help. I don't know if there's been significant errors in us issuing CEUs back that basically incorrectly identify the format. But I mean, let's not create work for ourselves. If there is no problem to be solved, then there's no point in adding an extra designation. But if it's helpful to ensure that it matches with the product or the certificate that the LSPs are receiving, then I think there is benefit there.
Right. I think the only difference, as I said, is going to come if we have regulations that dictate a limitation on the number of webinar or
Yeah,
a
but
requirement for a number of live courses. And until we have that,
I
which
understand.
we don't,
Yeah,
then it
I
doesn't
understand
matter.
that. Yeah,
that's
Gail,
it's still on the CEU form anyway, just like Beverly just said. I mean, if you look
Right.
at the form, it'll tell you that.
right. So we just need to get it right. We just need to make sure that what's going out, and I think that should suffice for the LSPA, I believe. But again,
So
I'm
for the ones that we just approved, the form under 1F will say location, webinar, and on-demand course.
Right.
They'll
Right.
list both formats under the
Right.
course.
Perfect.
If that's what the provider requested, yes.
That's
One
how we
certificate. If they request on a webinar, I'll list it as webinar. If it's live online course, I'll list it as online course.
So for the courses that were approved today, which are both formats, the form is going to list one or the other. And in the future, if this course ever gets offered as a live course, another form will be issued with the same course number, if it's the exact same course, and the location under 1F will have to be changed to in-person.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, because it's
It'll
a substantive
also-
change in
it'll also-
format.
It would also be designated as an A, because that's what we've done in the past when the LSPA or any course provider changed the format, which is another reason. You know, nobody mentions the fact that we've had dozens and dozens of courses converted to webinars during COVID. So
I was going to make that point.
those courses that were converted to webinars were given the designation A. That's what we've been doing.
Because those are reapprovals, because of the change in format. I think Deb's right. There's not a problem to be solved here. I think if we stick with the program, we'll be fine.
Yes.
okay. Can someone, Dave, do you want to make a motion?
Well, if we're not changing anything.
Yeah,
Well,
Wendy,
or at least memorialize for the LSPA and the public and ourselves how we resolve this incoming request from the LSPA.
yeah, the LSPA will use whatever CEU forms we get. So please take those CEU forms off the agenda if you wish. We will use them as they are. The LSP board can decide at a later time if there is any issue. All of the LSPA courses today were applied for both live webinar and on demand. We asked for both at the same time. This is not a change that will come later.
Correct. So the forms that they get for the 4 courses approved today for both formats under Part 1F, under location, will say live webinar or on-demand course under the same course number. So that's it. That's kind of the discussion.
Okay, so I have a question for Wendy. If the courses that were approved today, with respect to number 1, is that online and webinar, live webinar and online?
I can answer that because they were all proposed that way, including the Mass DEP one. They were all proposed and approved as live webinar format and on-demand course format.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have a head out, everybody.
Take care, Kathy.
Bye-bye.
Hi, Kathy.
Bye.
Hi, Kathy.
Okay. I'm
I
all
think
set.
before we wrap it up, I think it's great that these requests come in with both formats being available in the long run. So anything else before I wrap up this meeting?
Can we charge for vowels?
Excuse me?
Can we charge for vowels?
I think we should go to 8-digit course numbers. So I'm bringing this continuing ed meeting to a close at 1:34.
Thanks, David.
Thanks,
You're
Dave.
welcome.
Well done.
Thanks, Dave.
Shop, Dave. Okay, so the virtual, let's see, the Professional Conduct Committee, I guess based on the materials that we received from Beverly and Barbara, the virtual professional conduct meeting will not take place today, but it's slated to take place on October 15, 2020. So at least I'm just noting that at 1:34 p.m. today. Any comments or questions? Okay. Just make sure I got it right based on the record that we received. So we ready to move on with the board meeting?
Yes.
Okay. All right, great. So I'd like to open this meeting at 1:35 p.m. Call this meeting to order. Good afternoon and welcome everyone to the Board of Registration of Hazardous Waste Cleanup Professionals virtual meeting. I call this meeting to order again at 1:35 p.m. And just again, as a reminder that this meeting is being recorded. And Chris, I don't know if you want to put the meeting agenda on the screen.
Yes, hold on one second.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris.
There you go.
Great, perfect. Okay, so at this time, I'm just wondering if there are any announcements, and I invite the board members as well as our board executive director, Beverly, to share any announcements with each other and the public.
I'd just like to know who's on the line. I know we lost Kathy. I just want to make sure we have a quorum here. So Millie, David is on the line, Gail is on the line, Greg is on the line. Mark is on the line. Kurt is on the line. Jamie is on the line. Farouk is on the line. I'm sorry, Deb is on the line. Did I miss anyone?
You got everyone.
Thank you.
Millie, is it also appropriate to know who from the public is online? Is that customary to announce or no?
Yes.
Sure. I don't know if Chris can help us out. I really don't have, I don't have my chat, excuse me, my attendance set. We have 23 of 251 maximum.
We have Daniel Kelleher, James DePoulos, Christy Lefebvre, Lauren Lazinski, Lori McCarthy, Neil Kelly, Rebecca Buswell, and
Laura McCarthy. I'm sorry. Who else? Christy Lefebvre and Lauren McCarthy.
Lasinski.
And who else? I'm sorry.
Lauren Lasinski, Lori McCarthy.
Yes, Lauren Kaczynski. I got it. Yeah.
Neil Kelly and Rebecca Buswell and Wendy Rundle and Wes Simpson.
Okay, Rebecca, I'm sorry. I got Wendy and Wes.
Rebecca Buswell.
Yeah, got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All set.
Great, thank you. And so to that end, I don't know if any members of the public have any announcements that they also in kind would like to share with the board. So opening up the opportunity for that cross communication. And if none, we will move on to basically acknowledging the agenda for today. Any additions, deletions, or the other changes to the draft agenda. And the only comment that I was gonna, the only item that I was gonna add, and I think it's been resolved as per the first discussion that we had during the continuing education, had to do with meeting minutes, just a pre-post COVID. I appreciate our discussion prior and definitely look forward to resolving the issue, and also knowing that we can serve as mutual aid to try to pull together the meeting minutes. So I personally don't have any changes to add, and I'm inviting all the members to identify any additional changes to this draft agenda. If no changes, then I'd like to adopt this agenda for today's meeting. And whether we need to make a motion, I don't believe we need to do so. The agenda speaks for itself, and by way of adoption, we can codify it. Okay, so moving on to the next item, which is decisions with regards to licensing of applicants. Today, the board is going to be acting on 3 LSP license renewal dockets, which are up for discussion and voting. And before we enter into the package-specific discussion and the voting, you have a question, and I'd like to, I think, Beverly, you're the only one that can really help me understand the question that I have, an answer to the question, which is, as we look at docket number 1, with the renewal date, original renewal date of January 30, 2020, and now the renewal date of October 30, 23. My question has to do with pre-COVID and whether the new renewal date should have been January 30. But again, it could be some specific rule that I'm not looking at in trying to ensure that the new renewal date is correct.
I'm sorry, Millie, I don't understand your question. You're asking whether or not.
Yes, my question has. My question.
Go ahead.
Sure. So by extension, 3 years out from the original renewal date. And so if the renewal date was January 30, 2020, and this happened pre-COVID. So maybe it's me, maybe I'm reading it wrong, but my question had to do with trying to understand if the original renewal date was January 30. And again, that was pre-COVID, so there were no impacts associated with garnering all the necessary requirements to seek that LSP license. How come we have a new renewal date that it's reflected here on the actual board meeting packet as October 30, 2023, thereby giving a whole bunch of additional months?
Well, the two people on the docket, renewal docket, one had a year to complete their requirements. They either had a 90-day extension and failed to meet that requirement, or just didn't file at all for renewal, and they got a letter saying you have 1 year to get back into compliance. So if you look there, it says completed requirements within 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
And under the regulations, that changes their renewal date. It changes their expiration date.
Okay. All right. So maybe that was the piece that kind of confused me, because then you look at renewal docket number 2, and although it speaks to completed requirements within 1 year, it sort of aligns perfectly. You've got April 30, 2020, and then with the new renewal date of April 30, 2023. So I just wanted to compare apples and apples, and I wasn't sure if I got there. So I appreciate your help.
Yeah.
So I guess to close the loop, I take it to mean that both the renewal dates and the new renewal dates for all of these 3 dockets are accurate.
Yes.
Okay, so if they're accurate, then let's move forward with the discussion. So renewal package number 1, again, consists of 2 LSPs that have completed the requirements for the LSP license renewal as required. And thereby, their license now has a renewal date of October 30, 2023. And at this time, I'd like to open the floor for discussion between the board members.
I've got a question for, is there a way we can make this letters a little bit larger? Because I can barely read it. Is it only me?
Oh, the agenda?
Yeah, the whole,
I have my glasses on to read it, Farouk.
I have my glasses.
What are you talking about, Farouk?
I'm just wondering if this agenda can be made a little bit larger.
You have the packet.
The agenda is in 12-point font. I don't know what your computer's doing, but that's the typical font. It's not any smaller.
That is beautiful.
Okay. We just got it to work. We just got it into a larger text.
I make a motion to approve renewal docket number 1.
Second.
Okay, so with that, any comments?
Please make sure please make sure you're not recused from voting.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we're going to go with the voting as per prior meetings using the roll call methodology. Yes, it's an approval, but of course we also have the potential for any kind of oppose or abstain. So Gail?
Yes.
Farouk? Farouk?
Yes.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes, I'm sorry.
No
Farouk is
problem. Okay, great, Farouk. Yes. Greg?
Yes.
Jamie?
Yes.
Kirk?
Yes.
Kathy is out. Millie, yes. David Austin?
Yes.
Debbie?
Yes.
And Mark?
Yes.
Okay, the same goes for renewal package. So moved. So we here approve the renewal docket number 1.
Make a
Motion to
motion
approve
to
renewal
approve.
docket number 2.
Second.
Second. Okay, and again, these are 3 LSPs that have completed the requirement for LSP license renewal as required, and therefore have their license with a renewal date of April 30, 2023. So we have a motion, we have a second. Any comments? And if not, we'll go ahead and proceed with the roll call with a yes as an approval. Gail,
Yes.
Farouk,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Jamie,
Yes.
Kirk.
Yes.
Kathy is not present. Millie, yes. David,
Yes.
Debbie,
Yes.
and Mark.
Yes.
Thank you. So moved, and we hereby approve renewal docket number 2. Renewal package number 3. Do I have a motion to approve this package?
Second.
Moved.
Second. Great.
Second.
Okay, so the comments here is, again, these consist of 2 LSPs that have completed the requirements for an LSP license renewal as required, and thereby their license would have a renewal date of July 30, 2023. At this time, I open the floor for any additional discussion. If not, we'll proceed with the roll call with the yes being an approval. Gail,
Yes.
Farouk,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Jamie,
Yes.
Kirk.
Yes.
Kathy's not here. Millie, yes. David,
Yes.
Debbie,
Yes.
and Mark.
Yes.
Great, so moved, and we hereby approve the renewal docket number 3. Okay. At this time, we're going to move into the application review panel, or ARP number 309, Darius Klebika. And I'd like to turn this agenda item actually to our executive director, Beverly, so she can give us further status with regards to the discussion of ARP number 309, which was assigned to the board members Smith, Sadiq, and Campbell.
Okay, so I'd like to schedule a date for the application review next week. So I'll email you guys, since Kathy's gone, I didn't do that before she left. So we'll set a date for next week to review the application.
That's good.
Yep, I'll email you.
That's fine. Thank you.
Yep.
That sounds great. Okay. All right.
We'll do it by conference call as always.
Great. Thank you so much, members and Beverly. Also then, let's move on to the assignment application, the review panel number 310 for Beck Straley, Jesse Freeman, and Leslie Lombardo. And at this time, I'd also like to turn this agenda item to our executive director, Beverly, for further discussion of ARP number 310, which needs to be assigned for further deliberation and recommendation.
Okay, so all I need to know is whether or not you want to divide this up, or whether or not you members are willing to take on 3 in ARP 310, 3 applications.
We should divide and have 2 in one and 1 in the other, and I'll do the review of one of them.
Okay, so, all right, so hold on. So for Jesse Freeman, that will be ARP number 311. And I have David Austin. I need 2 more volunteers. I'm sorry.
Kirk, I'll volunteer.
All right, Kirk, thank you. And I need 1 other person.
I'll do it.
Greg will volunteer.
Greg, thank you. And for panel 310, which is Mr. Lombardo, I'm sorry, Ms. Lombardo and Mr. Straley.
I can do one of those.
Deb volunteers for the 2.
And
All
I
right,
do.
Deb, thank you. And Farouk, thank you. And any We need a third.
Sure, Mark Richards.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, all set.
Terrific. Thank you so much, board members and Beverly. At this time, I'd like to move on to the next item, which is the other licensing related matters, and specifically to talk a little bit about just a number of LSPs with an active status as well as inactive. So I'll turn it over to Beverly.
Okay, so I do want to note one thing, that we have the October quarterly renewals coming up for October 30th, 2020. There are 10 LSPs renewing in October, and the invoices were requested in August, so they should be going out pretty soon.
Okay.
Actually, I think Barbara may have sent those out already. But there are only 10 LSPs in the October. As for the total number of LSPs as of September 10th, that number was 466. As of September 10th, we had 2 LSPs who are on inactive status, and that information is right there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, any comments, questions? Is this sort of a sign of the industry? A little bit of a retirement mode, or, just curious as to what the practice has to say with regards to the numbers.
COVID.
COVID.
No, I think that as I've said before, there are a number of LSPs who fall into the category of the first generation, having been licensed in 1993, and a number of those people are retiring.
Mm-hmm. Right. I agree with you, Beverly. Okay, so then thank you so much for that report back. And how about if you also help us out, Beverly, with regards to informing the board relative to the schedule exam committee meeting?
I'm trying to schedule an exam committee meeting in October. I don't have a date yet, but we should try and get together sometime in October. I'm working on the logistics for that.
Right, terrific. And again, it would be possibly maybe by way of webinar, so that we can actually see any kind of materials.
It's going to have to be by way of webinar.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Yeah, I have the exam software on my computer at home.
Right.
So I can pull up all the information and share my screen so that all the participants in the exam committee can, we can go over any of the documents that we need to go over.
Yeah. And
Okay.
and Chris,
Right.
we have a way of making it secure, so that you would know if somebody else is on, right? Is that because we've always had that issue of security.
Well, we'll have Chris, I'll be responsible for that, because we'll have to figure out, it'll be a GoToWebinar meeting, and we'll have to set up invitations and all of that. So that'll provide us with the security we need.
Yeah, it won't be open to the public.
Right. But I mean, is there more security that's needed? Like if it's just shared from your screen, doesn't transmit across the internet, other than the screen,
Right.
then
No,
I
it's
assume
just
that's
the
more
screen.
secure, right?
Yeah, the document isn't available for editing by anybody else.
Okay.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, and we look forward to hearing about that date and receiving the invitation. Much appreciated. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to Board Member David Austin to talk to us a little bit about the summary of today's Continuing Education Committee. If you could please provide us
I
with.
have an exam report first, Millie.
Oh, pardon me. I am so sorry.
Not at all. Okay, so I met with the commissioner, excuse me, Chris Borges and Victoria about conducting an LSP exam during a time of COVID. And what we've come up with, because no buildings are open, no mass DEP buildings are open, so we've decided that the best place to offer the exam will likely be Worcester, Zero. The commissioner is working now to set up COVID-19 protocols. We have 4 potential people taking the test if everyone who applied today is approved. If not, the number will be less. There are, excuse me, 5 currently pending applicants to sit for the exam. I don't know what COVID capacity is. I don't know how many days or how many people can be in the room. We haven't finalized any of that stuff yet, but we're tentatively looking at December 9th. And whether or not we have 2 exam dates depends on whether or not we can follow COVID protocol about how many people can be in the room.
It seems like that large conference room in Zero would be perfect location.
That's why I selected it.
Yeah, that's an ideal location. Thank you so much for moving us forward on this.
Even though the room is large, there may be a limit on the number of people who can be in the room, the spacing, there's a lot to work out. Who's going to open the building, the bathroom, social distancing, all those things have to be brought into compliance. So I'm working with the commissioner, Chris, and Victoria on some parts of it.
I think we should give out extra points for the best looking masks for people taking the test.
Environmentally friendly masks.
Yeah.
Thank you, Beverly.
So,
that's really encouraging. And thank you for this is really COVID-19 times novel. Who knew would be here? So with that, I'd like to then.
Do the examiners have to sign some kind of a release form that they didn't get their, that if they do get something after this, they will not sue the DEP?
I don't think we can, as a state agency, make anybody sign anything. We're the government. We can't make them sign things to come in and sit for the exam. I don't think. But the commissioner is aware of, he has to work with EEA to accomplish this, and the governor's office. So there is, I believe, one agency that has administered an exam during COVID within the Secretariat. And I think it was Department of Agriculture, I'm not sure, but that was a paper exam and people sat in their cars and took the exam.
Yeah, that was for the soil board. So
Yep.
We have some examples, and then we have some other examples that are akin to people going to different third-party vendors at different locations for many of the other boards under the EEA umbrella.
Yeah. Well, we're going to try and do it in Worcester.
Excellent. Thank you. I really applaud you for moving this forward and using creativity while maintaining social distancing and all the safety protocols. Thank you, Beverly. And likewise, I'd like to also then at this point move on to having David Austin give us a summary of today's report. And everybody was there, but we can still summarize 1 or 2 points with regards to the meeting that you just
Sure.
shared.
The continuing ed committee meeting today, we discussed draft minutes and how they need to be completed. There was 4 course requests reviewed and they were all approved, 3 for the LSPA and 1 for Mass DEP. And they were all approved in 2 formats, live webinar and on-demand course. We discussed CEU forms that are still due and ones that need correction to the LSPA. And then we discussed course numbering, and it was decided for the courses that were approved today under the 2 formats, it would be the 1 course number. And on the form, it would say, it would list both of the formats.
Motion to approve the recommendations of the committee?
Second.
Roll call?
Yes, all in favor? So I thought, David, do you want to do that or do you want me to do it?
No, we have to do the roll call.
Yes, I understand. So I will-
Sorry. Sorry, you haven't gotten there yet.
No, that's okay. All right, so then, do you want to do it, David?
Nope, you can do it.
Okay, so roll call, approving the motion to approve the recommendations. So Gail, a yes is approved. Gail,
Yes.
Farouk,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Jamie,
Yes.
Kirk,
Yes.
and Kathy's not with us at this moment. Millie, yes. David,
Yes.
Deb,
Yes.
and Mark.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. Okay, so next we have, so you gave us everything, the report, the action, the committee recommendations, and then any other business. We've covered everything, right, David?
Yes, sorry. Yep.
Okay, great. Okay, so then we're going to move on into the section of the meeting where we talk a little bit about the Regulations Committee, personnel, budget, fees, and the LSPA. There was an incoming invitation from the LSPA for board member participation in an upcoming meeting in November. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to our Executive Director, Beverly, to give us her report on topics A through B, and then open discussion for item C.
Beverly, real quick, James DeCoulos wanted to know if his request to be heard at today's meeting is going to come up for discussion.
Up to the board members. I don't think that the board members are prepared to discuss Mr. DeCoulis's request in the public portion of the meeting, but it's up to the board.
So my apologies, I was out. I was not at the last LSP board meeting. I'm just catching up a little bit here and just trying to conduct business on what the agenda looks like for today.
Right. And Mr. DeCoulis is not on the agenda for today.
Correct. So is this something that perhaps, I could offer that for the next meeting? If it's, we can place it on the agenda for discussion in October.
I thought this platform didn't have the capability for anyone other than panelists to speak.
Right.
Right.
It would be,
He submitted a question, Jamie.
Oh, yeah, okay. I thought this was a. Okay.
Oh, he submitted a question. Millie, I think
I'll be honest, I haven't read the question, Beverly, so I really want to do the best I can in terms of service.
well, yeah, I don't think anybody has had a chance to review it. I think that it should be put over until the October meeting. We do have an executive session that is not scheduled for today, that's going to be scheduled at the end of the meeting. So I don't
Okay.
know. My recommendation is to put it over until the October meeting so that the board can have a full and fair opportunity to review his submission.
I certainly want to do justice to his question, and I will honestly tell you, I have not read the question. I need to at least do that so I can process it and provide you with the best response. So respectfully,
Yep.
my suggestion, I'm totally in line with Beverly, is that we table the question until October, and that will give the board members ample time to do justice to the question and answer responsively.
Yeah, I think the gist of it is that Mr. DeCoulis, as you recall, his petition for waiver was denied. And there have been further development. So I think it should take a vote on whether or not it wants to address Mr. DeCoulis's submission now or at the October meeting.
But going back to Jamie's comment, in his email, he requests to be heard at the board meeting today to discuss this matter. How would logistically that take place?
I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, if he requests that take place during the public session of the board meeting, you know, this, don't know.
Yes.
I would like to discuss my letter.
And because Mr. DeCoulis has requested that, doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to be heard on that.
I think in terms of
but I'm not a voting member. That's entirely up to the board.
So what we have is a chat feature, correct, for the public to communicate with the board?
No, we have a question feature where the public can ask questions, and that's what I bring up the questions. The chat feature only works between panelists, which is the board.
Yeah,
I would have to send him a separate invite as a panelist if he would like to speak and or use the chat function.
Yeah, my mistake, Chris. That's exactly what I meant to say, that he has to be enabled to speak. So we are not set up to do that today. He's not on the agenda. But I would more than happy, I would be more than happy to ensure that he's provided an opportunity in October. If that's, at least that's my posture, and open for discussion between the board members too.
Millie, I would agree. Do you want a motion after some discussion, or what do you want you don't want this as a motion?
Yes. I move to allow Mr. DeCoulis to be heard at the upcoming October 15th meeting.
Second.
All in favor? We can actually then do the roll call. Gail?
Yes.
Farouk?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Jamie?
Yes.
Kirk? Kirk? Franklin? So he's either abstaining or
He's
not
muted.
with us.
Unmute.
No, you can't say he's abstaining. He has to say that. If he's abstaining, he has to say.
He's on mute.
So Kirk, if you don't mind, please unmuting yourself so we can hear what your vote is. Okay, so he's still muted. Let's get back to him later then.
Yes.
Kathy is not here. Millie is a yes. David Austin,
Yes.
Deb Listernick,
Yes.
Mark Richards,
Yes.
and I'm going to go back to Kirk Franklin.
Yes. Yes.
So motion carries, and we will provide Mr. DeCoulis with the opportunity to be heard at the October 15th meeting. Okay, so at this moment, I'd like to again have our Executive Director, Beverly, provide us with a discussion regarding the work of the Regulations Committee, the Personnel Matters, Budget, Fees, and the LSPA's invitation to participate in the association's November 2020 meeting. Beverly?
The Regulations Committee meeting will be October 15th, 2020, and will start at 12 o'clock on that Eastern Standard Time. At that meeting, I did not have time to put corrections in. Actually, it was technological difficulties, but so we'll start up with section 8.00 on October 15th at 12. With respect to personnel, budget, and fees, resumes for both open positions have been submitted and closed, and I'm starting to review them so that we can get interviews scheduled. With respect to the budget, the FY fiscal year 2021 budget was submitted on 9/15/20. Our budget is $20,488. We are a line item, as you know, on the state on DEP, within DEP's budget. Nothing has changed. The $20,488 is exactly the same as it was last year. The only notation that I want to make is that there is an allotment of $8,488 in consultant fees, and that's for the new version of the exam and fees for the psychometrician. That's it.
I'm going back to personnel. I have a question. Is there a plan in the event that Beverly is out again for someone to fill in?
No, there is no one. If I'm out before I hire someone else, it'll be the same thing. There is no replacement for me.
Do others find that unacceptable? I mean, Millie, should government
It's
step
been that way.
find someone?
It is unacceptable. I say it's unacceptable. No, it's not no one finding it unacceptable. It's been this way for years. It's been this way for years, and nobody has been able to rectify the situation. Hopefully this time we'll get some folks in and I'll have some help. But if I'm out, nothing is getting done. If things are slow, when I come back, it's just compounded.
So David,
it's more than just the minutes, it's the responsibilities. And it's also COVID. I mean, dealing long distance with, I didn't get a laptop until August, you know, so there are logistical problems with respect to COVID, but I haven't had a general counsel since 2014. Lori's been gone since 2018. At some point, I was going to be ill.
I know
And
all that.
At some point, there was going to be nobody to cover.
I'm not questioning your efforts, and I know all that. And it's above you, obviously.
So here's my posture. I mean, where I have some concern is that the state of affairs right now with regards to the budget in general, this is not just DEP, but government in general has been operating on a skinny budget. We do not have a codified past budget for FY21. So again, the allocations are what they are. I'm always, as a manager, concerned about cap and whether we are going to be, if we don't fill the positions, often our cap shrinks. So that's a lot of concern of mine. I can definitely tell you that the trick to moving these packages forward, we need to identify, we need to work with the diversity office so that we can actually have an interview panel. It's often the hiring manager, in this case is Beverly. She is the hiring manager, so she definitely needs to be part of that discussion. She will be ultimately carry that decision, obviously, with consensus from the interview panelists. And once you get the interview panel, I mean, it's been my experience. Right now, I have 3 openings in Southeast region, and I'm diligently moving them along because I don't know at what point I'm going to be told now there's a hiring freeze. I mean, we're seeing what's happening with UMass. We're seeing what's happening with a lot of other state agencies that are really torn into very hard decisions with regards to how to balance what they need to do. And again, I'm not trying to signal anything catastrophic, but I'm always very conscientious and aware that any day it's a game changer. So,
well, I've been assured that these positions have to be filled.
I understand.
And I know that I don't know what DEP is doing. I'm not working with DEP. I'm working with EEA.
I understand, and all I'm trying to say is that, just to close the loop on from my end and my experience, which again harkens to just DEP, is that once you get the interview panel identified, once that happens, typically there's a 14-day time frame by which once you perform, you get the interview panel, you get you get the candidates on board for interviews, you schedule the interviews. Once the ratings happen, my experience has been that those packages move forward very quickly. We now have a mass hires software, so you can actually track as to how it's progressing all the way from the hiring manager all the way through approval. So there is no hiding as to how the progress is being made, because you actually see it in front of you. You can open it and it says, oh, Millie Garcia's the one that's kind of holding up the process. So I think it's very transparent. We just, again, I'm not there, I'm not involved, but again, I'm here to say that if there's a need for me to participate as a panelist, I'm more than happy to also offer my services.
I think to David's point, though, I mean, as important as it is that the positions be filled, is there a plan B or something that can be done to make sure that the board's business can continue to move forward if we lose Beverly for a few weeks again? I mean, obviously, I know there's key dates that need to be met in terms of continuing ed paperwork and licensures and everything like that, and I just don't want the board to be in a situation where folks licensing paperwork isn't being processed in a timely fashion because there's no staff available.
Right. I'll tell you, interviews, hiring is one thing that you almost need to put other responsibilities aside to move forward on. But again, if Beverly is out, rightfully so on personal or medical, she is the hiring manager. So she needs to feel comfortable with the selection of that candidate because that person would be reporting to her. So I think that's a factor that I think I'm hearing today, and I think we all are hearing, and we need to be respectful of that. And it's up to maybe Beverly. I don't want to speak for you, but hiring managers also have the ability to maybe delegate if that's something that you wish to do. But again, the risk with that is that you may get stuck with a candidate that it's not going to work for you or for the board.
It seems short-sighted to always keep talking about hiring someone and the hiring process why can't the Plan B encompass someone who's already on staff?
Right.
That moves in.
That's a good question, David. That's a good question.
So David,
As I
what do you
said,
mean by staff?
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm looking for a solution too. I mean, we all as board members, we want to move this forward. So when you say on staff, I mean, really it's Beverly the only person that's on staff, unless you're thinking about on
No,
staff.
what David is talking about is why can't someone from OGC be loaned to the LSP board, or why can't some staff member already employed by DEP? David, you correct me if I'm characterizing what you're saying. Somebody already there. Why can't someone who's already there fill in?
Correct. And I don't have those details, and I don't know the process.
Yep.
And I don't like to complain without a solution, but I don't have a solution. I just think there should be a plan B for someone to fill in prior to a new hire coming on. And I don't know how that works in state government, and I understand the difficult times.
I think, what we can try to do is, I mean, here's a recommendation then based on what I'm hearing Beverly and David speak to. Maybe just having a letter directly, the board members compose a letter to the commissioner requesting as an interim fix to have somebody transferred to the LSP board.
Okay.
Not to make this conversation more complicated, but I find that when, quite often just having an administrative person filling in for some of the more mundane tasks seems like it would be very helpful to Beverly. And I know that we have Barbara on a somewhat intermittent basis, and I'm not suggesting she's her, but is there administrative assistance available to at least keep the office to open the envelopes that come in and move some.
Barbara, that's being done, Greg.
Okay.
Barbara does that. Barbara opens the files, the recusal sheet that I send out. Barbara has already prepared that. She prepares the invoices. It's not the clerical stuff. I need help with, as you know, continuing education and the legal work. I've been doing all of that since 2014, and then 2018 after Lori left. It's unsustainable. It's absolutely unsustainable that I'm doing the job of when the past administration ran the board, there were 5 full-time people doing what I do all by myself.
So I get that. Right now we have an opportunity.
No, I don't think people do get that. I think that as long as I was able to keep my finger in the dike, it was fine. But this year with COVID, coupled with my own illnesses and the fact that for a time Barbara wasn't even there. There was nobody there.
So Beverly, what I refer to is that I understand those 2 points, COVID and your health. I totally understand it. And I guess what we're trying as a board is to identify a plan B, a solution that will at least alleviate what you're currently going through. And the question becomes, how do we set a plan in motion? We have an opportunity to hire that has not been taken away from us. We started the process. Candidates have come through the double doors, and now we need to complete that administrative process. And the concern is that you may not be available to proceed with that process. So.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna be available to proceed with that process. I didn't say I wouldn't be available.
Okay, maybe I misunderstood. I thought that you stated that, if you're not available for 3 weeks in October or in the fall, you did not specify October.
That's not what I said.
Okay. So to clarify, we're going to move forward with the interview process, and you're leading that effort, and we appreciate that. Now, the question becomes whether we as a board can rally around putting our thoughts on paper and requesting at least, or putting it in paper and presenting our commissioner with the request that there's given consideration to have a DEP staffer assist you, whether it's someone from the Office of General Counsel, or whether there's a scientist that can assist with investigatory work. So I'm just here to ask the members of the board what their thoughts are on that.
Millie, would you be willing to give up Lori again?
Lori?
That would help us quite a bit.
You know,
That's about
Lori, I've got news for you. Lori left for a reason.
Does drafting work? You know, like they do it in Vietnam War?
She's happy where she is.
I know, it was partially in jest.
Yeah, I know.
I'm sorry, I need to drop off. Beverly, could you just email me the time for the executive session?
I will.
Thank you.
thank
Bye,
you,
everyone.
Jerry.
Bye.
So again,
To answer your question, Millie, I'll gladly write a letter. It can either be from the board or me as an individual. Doesn't matter.
so I will take a stab at the letter and then
Sure.
circulate it, and we will, you know, whoever is interested in signing, we can definitely co-sign this letter.
Excellent. Thank you.
Well, I would appreciate being made part of the process.
Of course, you are part of the process. We need to make sure we get it right. So we need to articulate the situation in a way that really reflects the reality of what you're going through.
I think the commissioner is well aware. I meet with them weekly, but I think a letter is a good idea.
All right, Beverly, we'll make that happen.
You have until the end of the week, Millie.
I'm here. I just live for the board. Sounds good. I'll compose it right away. Great.
Thank
So Beverly, thank you so much for walking us through the regulations meeting. I do have a question. It's more, I think, a standing agenda, a standing request. But again, I have not, for all I know, you've already provided me with this request, the information that I need, but I've been out also on personal for a month now, almost 6 weeks now. So, and I haven't really gone back to my emails, but I would really like to appreciate an e-copy of the entire compendium of the existing regs. So if you don't mind, just either having you or Barbara provide me so I can best be prepared for that regulations meeting. I know it focuses on section 8, but I'd like to see it from soup to nuts so I can familiarize myself.
Okay.
Thank you. And I think the last time, I think some of the board members also wanted to receive it. I'm not going to speak for them, but definitely I'd like to receive the entire compendium.
If you're sending an email, Beverly, just send it to everybody so we're all on the same, working from the same document.
Okay.
Thanks, Beverly. Okay, now on to 9C. And again, I'll confess that I don't have the exact invitation. I apologize. I missed last month's meeting, and I'm really backed up on my emails. But I was hoping if you.
Well, it's a standing invitation, Millie.
Oh, there's no formal. Gotcha. Thank you so much. So this request came in, I believe, either before or right around the time that COVID, unfortunately, just, presented itself. I know that we don't have the feature for Wendy Rundle to basically speak directly to the board members, but, there is the ask the question, and maybe she can basically use that feature to kind of add to the 9C item, which is the invitation for appearance at the November 2020. I think from my end, from the get-go, I felt like it would be a good idea. I think the complexion of the board has definitely dramatically changed. I for one, I'm new to this board. Some of y'all have been with the board for a very long time, and the LSP constituency is fully aware of who you are. So, the question becomes whether this invitation can be just sort of like a very simple meet and greet versus anything really complicated or any kind of complex or time-consuming presentations. Because I think what we would be hoping to do and what I envision is more like a meet and greet. I don't know if that would meet the mark with the LSPA, but seeing that here we are October and, we are challenged by way of other commitments and times. And me personally, I do also, I'm not working full-time right now. So I would like to be of service. I definitely would love to support the association. I think the board is a very well-equipped and powerful board. And, we care, and it's important for us to work with the regulated community as well as the association that represents the LSPs and that particular sector. So I open it for discussion, and I don't know if we have anything, Chris, if you have an email, any kind of question or comment from Ms. Rundle.
Not as of yet.
It was a standing invite all through last year for us to come in like we did in the past to talk about the board, how things function, things like that, updates. There were discussions by Gail to dust off a previous presentation and maybe consider doing that. No one ever volunteered, and I think it's dead in the water unless board members volunteer and want to present. Otherwise, it's not going to happen.
I remember volunteering, but
excuse me?
Yeah.
Oh, I remember volunteering, but it was before COVID.
Yes, I volunteered too, because I know the presentation.
Okay, yeah. And I personally would not be interested in a meet and greet online format.
No, me neither.
Well, the
Gail, do you have a copy
LSPA
of
wanted,
what-
I believe the LSPA wanted to offer it for credit. So a meet and greet is not something for credit. I think we're talking about two different things. I think what the LSPA was talking about was what Gail is talking about, which is putting on, replicating the program that we did years ago for credit. And yes. I just don't have the time. I don't have the time to do it between now and December 9th, getting Sam together and interviewing. I don't have the time to do it.
Does somebody have a copy of what the presentation was previously? I'd be very interested in seeing that.
I do.
We were supposed to get it, but I don't know, Gail, if you circulated it.
No, I think Beverly said she would.
Gail doesn't have it, Millie. Gail doesn't have it. These are board documents. I have it.
Well, I have a copy on my computer from when we did it, but you have the official copy.
Okay, so I guess there's two parts to resolving this issue. First is clarification that the LSPA's proposal to us pre-COVID is what they're looking for now. And if that's the question, I totally concur with Beverly that November is out of the picture. If it's something other, which does not require heavy lifting, albeit no credits involved, the question becomes whether the LSP board wishes to partake in maybe just being introduced, and that would be that. And I know I heard what David Austin had to say about that.
Wendy just said it would be great to have the LSP board appear before the LSPA at least every few years. In early 2020, the LSP board suggested November. The LSPA is not interested in replicating the presentation from years before. The LSPA has presentation slides from the previous time. LSPA is always happy for the board to present on whatever topics make sense and whatever board members want to do.
And the question is, it would be for credit, so we would need to have some organized material that we work on and process.
But
Yeah,
that shouldn't hamper us that it has to be for credit. If we can't pull it off for credit, it still serves a value.
Okay, I'm just polling, trying to get some reaction here.
I think it takes, if they want something put together other than just a meet and greet, which is not, I agree with David that that doesn't necessarily have as much value as one thinks. One needs to be prepared to present something to the group and if we want to have it an question and answer after we do some type of presentation, I think that's fine. But they're not going to be interested in just seeing our faces or something like that. I mean, I think we have to have something to present to them, and because of the times, it is hard to say what we've been doing in the last year. Well, it's trying to tread water, I think we need to have, it will take time on our part to present something that says something relevant to the LSPA.
Mhm. I mean, I think the other issue is, balancing past presentation material with, you had the seasoned LSP community and then the emerging young LSPs, the new young professionals LSPs that they need to know there's a board that exists and what our function is. So maybe there's a tweener proposal here with regards to rejuvenating some of the material, already existing material for the benefit of the practice and the emerging licensed site professionals in the Commonwealth.
Wendy's comments, if the LSP board wants to do a webinar that is not for credit, the LSPA is totally open to that. It could be as simple as introducing yourselves, talking about proposed reg changes, and doing the Q&A. I'm sure that there are plenty of questions about the exam application process, how the 2020 exam will be administered, et cetera, et cetera.
I don't have time for that. Honestly, I'm too busy trying to figure out how I'm going to give an exam during COVID. I don't really have time for a meet and greet. And how would we accomplish that? I guess by Zoom. But I don't have time for it. Not this year. It's almost over. And I've got certain goals that I have to meet before the end of the year. Don't forget, 466 LSPs have to have their annual billing mailed in December. I mean, I'm already, people are already complaining about things not getting done. And rightly so. Rightly so. I agree with you. Things should be accomplished as they used to be when I had staff in a timely fashion. And I simply can't add another thing to my plate.
Okay. So Beverly, what I would then
between the exam and the applications and managing all the rest of the things that have to be managed, interviewing, I mean, I can't do it.
Can I then request that you provide me and the board members with the official version of the materials that were used in past years, just so I can familiarize myself with the materials that were presented? And I think what I'd like to do is, or recommend that at least we consider it, look at the material and see if it's something that maybe we can have 1 or 2 or 3 representatives going over this material, not necessarily the entire full board. I just want to demystify the mystery with this presentation. I'd like to see the presentation. I'd like to see if it's something that any volunteers can handle with the proviso.
Now, everything has to be updated, Millie. There are stats, and Gail can add to this so I can,
I understand. I'm not looking for,
paint a fuller picture of exactly what the presentation entailed because it was for credit.
Yeah,
And I agree with Bill. If it has to be for credit, it's got to be right.
of course. My request is not to produce anything, Beverly. My request as chair is to be provided with already existing material that I don't have in my domain.
I think it's a great idea because it may motivate or prompt one of us to update one or do a new presentation as a volunteer.
Yes, and we could have a committee that says we'd like to do it. I mean, as I said, I volunteered to help put something together, but it has to be to my point, it has to be meaningful, and anything the board presents in terms of what they're doing could conceivably be for credit if we have if we have some kind of content.
Yep. It has to have content. It has to meet the standards. Yes. All right. I will send out the PowerPoint to you.
But as regards to this question, I think we have to pass on October 15th. I don't think we can put anything together in 20-something days. And that gives them a chance to get somebody else for that meeting.
Yep. So I'll send out the PowerPoint.
Okay, and at least, clearly we're not committing to a November 2020, but just being able to see what we have in front of us. And again, I'm not asking for there to be any kind of new updated version. I know that takes a lot of time and effort, but just kind of see in front of us, what is it that, some basic rubric of the LSP board, its function, its authority, the regulation. And basically just, this part is changing. This is to be updated. This is what the ARP process is. This is how we do it. Maybe that's all in there. And it's just some basic. And the question is whether we are serving the new emerging generation of licensed site professionals across the Commonwealth. We're doing some justice to their continuing education as well. So that takes care of item 9C. We will be provided with the official presentation. And then we will have to basically talk a little bit about it next time we get together. We have a quorum. We can talk about, maybe it's next year, or, the approach to having 1 or 2 or 3 volunteers present the material. Okay, Chris, do we have any other comments on the question? Okay. All right, so our next LSP board meeting is going to be held virtually on October 15th. And again, I just want to thank the board members and our executive director for all their hard work and continuing their mission and dedication to carry out the affairs of the board. With that, with no more comments, looking forward to seeing you on October 15th. Stay healthy and safe. And we are adjourning this meeting at 2:44 p.m. on September 23rd.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Second.
Take care, Millie.
Take care. Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Good night. Goodbye.